Welcome to the Women in Wellness podcast. This is your place to get the latest up-to-date health and wellness information specifically for women, while providing you practical tools you can implement today. I'm Dr. Caitlin Sazowski, and I wanted to personally thank you for spending part of your day with me. Hello, Women and Wellness Tribe. It is Dr. Caitlin, and I have the pleasure of having a wonderful woman on today. And we're going to talk about some topics that we haven't dove into too much, but I think you are really going to love it. So today with me, I have Elsbeth Meuth, who is, you're a doctor of education and has assisted thousands of women to create lasting intimacy and fulfillment in their lives and relationships. She is featured on Showtime's documentary series, Sexual Healing, and the Emmy Award-winning NBC show, Starting Over. She's also a best-selling author of Sexual Enlightenment, who is endorsed by the world spiritual pioneer, Dr. Michael Beckwith, and is the co-founder of TantraNova Institute in Chicago. Guys, you are so going to be blown away by this conversation. I can't wait to have this with you. And thank you so much for being with me, Elsbeth.
Oh, thank you so much. I just love to be in conversation with you, just even in preparing, our interview here.
Wonderful. So how did you get into this realm of specific topic that you are, a master in?
Thank you. So yes, it's all about intimate health. We often have it so compartmentalized, like there's health, there's physical health, nutritional health, all of that. However, how much does the connection to our intimate life force self affect the way we feel, the way we show up in life, the way we relate to others? And I'm not saying only to a beloved. So I'm just thrilled to expand the field of health a little further here into the realm of intimacy, of intimate connection, both emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy, and how that is all related to our aliveness, being alive, being turned on to life, being turned on to myself. And you asked how I came to this. So I, didn't used to do this 20 years ago. I was a management consultant and pretty good at it. However, I was miserable at relationship. I had this pattern of attracting unavailable men. And while that was exciting at certain moments, most of the time I was alone. And there came a time when I felt very despaired because I thought, Elsbeth, if you don't change that, if you want to have lasting intimacy and love in your life, you need to do something. Otherwise, you're going to end up and leave this planet without ever having had experienced that. Now, I did have love and intimacy in my life, but I was not able to sustain it, to make it last. And I also knew that there was a kind of like a blind spot. I knew there was something, but I couldn't pinpoint it. So I was walking around, like a blind person. And that's a moment when it's really, advisable to look for someone outside of myself to support me in seeing something I couldn't see about myself. So it was the time when I delved deeply into meditation and then into studying Tantra, which is an approach that comes from, East India, from the ancient wisdoms, that allows us to reconnect to the integration of our physical, sexual, emotional, love, and mental and consciousness self, so that we truly become integrated and can flow instead of being compartmentalized, disjointed, constricted. So what opened up for me out of that work and practice was that I discovered that I held distrust towards men. And I didn't know that. If you had known me over 20 years ago, you never would have called me a distrusting bitch. I was charming. I reeled them in. However, underneath, and that is what I needed to discover so that I could free myself from that distrust, which was, of course, related to a much earlier time in my life when I was a child and an adolescent, could clear that and really tap into my fullest self. And given that it was so impactful for me, I decided to leave management consulting and to create my own school while I was also looking for a partner I could create lasting intimacy and love with, who showed up within 6 months. You know, when we clear the shadows, when we clear the constrictions, we are this open channel. And then we reverberate differently into the outer world. And there he came, and he had grown up in a tantric household, which I didn't even know, was possible. And we created TantraNova, the institute we have in Chicago, together. So just like you, we work together as well as a couple, as beloveds, as business partners. And he works with men, I work with women, we work with couples, So that is how I came to it. And of course, over the last 20 years, gotten so much clearer on the power of tapping into our life force, life giving, pleasure energy, creative self that is really the fuel for our life. And that is like a fountain, that we want to be able to access and then channel and make use of so that we can be turned on and alive and well.
What a beautiful story. That is wonderful. And I you have to have found someone very special, because to work with a significant other, a beloved one, so to be with them all day and then come home to them and still want to be with them, it has to be a pretty special relationship. So great job.
It is. And you may know this from yourself, from your own life and relationship. It is like when we met, there was a sense of that there is a foundation of being drawn together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are things we have to work on, but there always has been a foundation that we can come back to. And that also, bridges us over when there are differences. And yes, it's really about creating relationship versus just moving through relationship by default.
Absolutely. So do you mind sharing how, because when you say um, becoming aroused, you're not necessarily talking about, like we talked about earlier, a climatic feeling all the time. What does intimacy actually have to do with well-being specific to women?
Mhm. Yes. So there are the different dimensions of energies within each of us. And some of you who is listening, you may be familiar with the energy centers or vortices or, you know, uh, just like chakras that, and we are all familiar with it, even if we never named them by name, because we all are familiar with, like this, 5-year-old girl who says, Mommy, I love you so much, touching her chest because that is where she feels the love. No, never heard of chakras or energy centers or vortices or whatever. So we are familiar with these different places in our body where we may have different sensations and feelings. Like we say, oh, I had a thought, I had an idea or an intuition, and we touch our forehead. Or, my anger, I really feel it like a knot in my stomach. It befalls me. So there is this center in our pelvis that is our sexual center, where sexual energy emanates from, and sexual energy is life force energy. Just there are different gradations of that energy. So just like right now, you and I are in conversation, and everyone who is listening or watching, most likely you are not aroused, but that doesn't mean that this energy doesn't pulse through you, moves through you all by itself, just like blood flow. And then when I, when I walk out by Lake Michigan and the breeze touches my skin and it may feel really pleasant, I'm not highly aroused then, but my life force energy has lifted, elevated just a little bit. And then, of course, the energy can get aroused and arise all the way up to a highly climactic experience. It's all the same energy at different stages. And so when I'm connected to my pleasure self, I don't have to be aroused, but I can be deeply connected, to be in my body, to feel myself, to be connected to, I brought her, Caitlin, to my yoni, which is a Sanskrit word for the sexual center of a woman. Yoni means sacred space, very different from, when we call her vagina, or perhaps not so pleasing terms. Sacred space is something I, honor, I respect, I love, and perhaps I caress, very different relationship than I was taught about, like don't go there until you are married. And then whose energy is it?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need someone else to be in my energy? No. This is my energy that has been there from the early times, and then I cultivate it, I connect with it. So to be connected with my Yoni Center as a state of being that is the fountain of aliveness. It can be just very subtle. I can squeeze her, I can squeeze her by like Kegels,
Mm-hmm.
and then breathe that up, that sensation, that may be just a good feeling of, oh, I'm grounded, I'm in myself, I'm connected. And so that is then also what I use to connect with my heart, with my conscious self. And this is how I can come into flow. Because whenever I'm in flow, I feel well, physically, emotionally, mentally. If I'm stuck in my mind, in my thoughts, if I have circularity in my thoughts, think the same all the time, I'm not in flow, I'm stuck. Or if my heart is heavy, if I live in a perpetual sense of loss or regret, versus my heart is open, I'm grateful, I'm so happy to be here with you, share all these wonderful ways of being with you and everyone who is listening. Or if I'm disconnected in my Yoni Center, if there is a disconnect to this life giving fountain, let's not forget that this is the center where we conceive and where an embryo gestates for 9 months. I mean, this is a potent, powerful center. So I can draw on that center for my own well being, for my own health, for my own joy, for, again, being alive. This is all about being alive, aliveness.
So how do you draw from that center? How do you, like, are there any tools or tips that you can give the listeners so that they can start to learn to draw from their yoni to experience more joy and more centeredness? And especially with everything that's been going on in the world, it can be sometimes hard, is what I hear, to really be optimistic or happy or grateful because of everything that's going on.
Yes, yes. I'm so glad you bring this up because a big question is, how can I be with myself so that I can be the source? And I don't mean just sexually or with my Yoni Center, but also how can I be with myself that I can be the joy of life or come from that, no matter what happens at the outside. That doesn't mean that we don't see the challenges, be it in our relationships, in our families, in taking care of an ill person, or losing someone, or the economic hardships. But I can either succumb to that and increase my suffering, or I can use, myself to really elevate myself so that I can experience more equanimity, more
Mm-hmm.
peace, more joy, and then radiate this to the outside and deal with the challenges in a different way. So, what about if we do a little practice to tap
Mm,
into? You asked me if I have some tips or so.
yes,
Having an experience is much better than just me telling what to do.
absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
right. I get
All right,
you.
ladies, you ready?
So, if you could close your eyes and sit up straight so that your sit bone are touching, in a grounded way, the seat. No matter if you're in the car, you actually want to stop for a moment. And if you are just watching, sit back, erect yet comfortably, with your eyes closed, preferably because we become more inward oriented when we have closed eyes and we can focus on the inner space. And if you could just squeeze and release your pelvic floor muscles as if you were doing a Kegel thing, just in your own rhythm, like saying hello to your Yoni Center. It doesn't have to be a hard squeeze, it can be very light, yet it's a kind of a pumping. Beautiful. And then release the muscles, opening up, the opening of your Yoni Center, and letting go, letting your anal sphincter muscle go, letting your glutes go, opening your pelvic floor into the seat, into the earth, and notice how that allows us to become a little freer in that place, unencumbered. Beautiful. And then when you are ready, exhale all air. Then taking in a deep breath through the nose, filling the belly, the chest, all the way up to the top of the head. And on the exhalation, squeeze, release the muscle, squeeze, release, and breathe in through the nose, filling the belly, the chest, to the top of the head. And on the exhalation, squeeze, release, and breathe in, filling the belly all the way up to the top of the head. On the exhalation, squeeze, release, and breathe in from the bottom to the top. Now hold the breath at the top and squeeze your pelvic floor muscles, your yoni muscles, and imagine breathing up, guiding up, the energy of the squeeze all the way up to the top of the head. Hold it at the top of the head, supported by the squeeze. Beautiful. And on the exhalation, keep the squeeze and let the breath trickle down through your torso. And at the bottom, let the muscles go into the earth. One more time, a deep breath in from the bottom to the top. Hold the breath at the top, squeeze, and move the energy from the squeeze up into your third eye and hold it there. Hold it there. Feel the connection of your beautiful Yoni Center with your third eye. And on the exhalation, let the breath trickle down like water through the channel. And at the bottom, let the muscles go and send it down and out of your yoni opening, the breath into the earth. And then continue breathing in your own rhythm. Just notice how the breath comes and goes effortlessly, how your belly rises on the inhale and falls on the exhale. And then take a moment while you breathe in and out and bring your awareness to your pelvic floor, your Yoni Center, and notice how that area is feeling at this very moment. And then slowly come back by opening your eyes. And Caitlin, if you could be so kind and share how your yoni may feel at this moment.
How do I describe it? I think a little tingly, relaxed. My head actually feels clearer. And I think it actually helped open up my nose. My nose is pretty stuffy today. But no, I feel much lighter and my head is far clearer.
Beautiful. I mean, beautiful. And each of you experiences whatever you are experiencing. There's no particular way how we are supposed to feel. And what you really so beautifully shared is that for you, this channel opened up. And when we consciously move our energy, when we bring awareness to our life force energy, we can move it through the breath. You know, I said earlier, life force energy go hand in hand. And that then opens that channel, which brings aliveness or clarity or openness, even the sinuses.
Maybe not for everybody, but that was me today.
No, exactly, and it may be different next time. You know?
How often do you recommend women go through that practice? Is it a couple times a day? How long do they do it? Is it just do it as you will?
I would give, two suggestions here. One is to do this practice every day. And I would be happy to actually share with you a recording of this, if you want to share this with the women, with everyone who is listening, so you can get guidance in it. And then you can, have it as a daily practice, because just by doing it for 3 minutes, that was not long. It was not even 3 minutes, and you can see the power of it. So if you stay in there for 3 to 5 minutes, it's like, whoo.
And so what is this actually called? Like, what do you call this type of guided meditation?
So we call it really, activating our pelvic floor, which activates the yoni, because they are in the same, in the same vicinity, the pelvic floor. And the Yoni Center is, a physiological place, but it's also an energetic place, because feeling aroused is an energy. You cannot touch arousal. You may bring yourself to it or touch yourself so that this energy is, uplifted. But just like any energy, we cannot touch it. We cannot touch love, the feeling of love. We cannot see it, but we truly can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my arousal, my orgasm, I cannot touch it. I cannot see it. My body may move in a certain way. My face may change. But the orgasm itself, the experience, is not touchable. It's feelable. And so by tapping into the energy and moving it up, I can then actually also in a aroused state move up my orgasmic feeling into my heart, imbuing my heart, connecting with my third eye and opening up my consciousness further, which you already had a little taste of.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you said my head feels clearer. So the second thing is that once you are familiar with that motion, with that contraction, coordinated with the breath, because that requires a little practice for the nervous system to get used to it, then you can do it anywhere. You can do it even when you drive, just don't close your eyes, but you can drop into that fountain when you do the dishes. Or sometimes I do it when I'm angry and I want to shift out of anger. Then when I bring my awareness to squeezing and releasing and the breath, it alters the chemistry and the flow within. And then, I may get out of my self-righteousness, making my husband wrong, or, it's definitely his fault.
Well, sometimes it's their fault, but sometimes it's.
If I stay with that, if I stay self-righteous about that, there is no way of bridging our differences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And being able to see our part in either the disagreement is really a gift to ourselves, not them, because it allows for things to just flow off our back in that way. I find when I'm not holding on to things, I'm actually far happier, and the little things don't bother me nearly as much.
Yes. And there may be something we need to pay attention to, like injustice or not being heard, or, perhaps some insensitivities on the other side, to really look at that together. But when I'm angry, I cannot listen. Because I'm so preoccupied with myself, my anger has me. However, when I shift out of it, and this practice at times helps me to alter my state of being so that I can come back to listening. Elsbeth, what was there in the first place? And what would you like to be listened to? And invite him to look at this with me together. Then, once he feels invited, guess what? He's willing to listen. Anyway.
Is this a method of helping cope with either anger or disappointment so that you can work through whatever that may be?
Absolutely. Because again, earlier I said it's all about reestablishing the flow within us so that the constrictions can disappear. And do you have children?
I don't, not yet.
Me neither. But we can see when children come into the world, infants, they are totally flexible in their spine. They don't get stuck in emotion. They don't complain to their mother when she doesn't give them her breast to nurse. When the baby is hungry, baby may cry, but, and then finally gets the breast and then falls asleep, wakes up, watches the mobile, then smiles at you, doesn't get stuck in, oh, my mom is so bad, she doesn't listen to me. Now it has to do with the development of the brain, that this center of language hasn't developed yet, but that is the kind of flow that is within us that we can access again from that original state. And so when I, shift my physical state, which always has a consequence in the chemicals that, are being produced in the body,
Mm.
assists then in shifting my emotional state. Because if I live in a high frequency of love and gratitude, that then produces certain chemicals is different than when I am primarily in feeling subjected to something, angry, regretful, resentful, which are low frequency emotions that produce other chemicals. And so, yes, and then of course my thoughts. If I feel I'm disadvantaged, done to, not wanted, so thoughts, feelings, and our physical experience, which we call then sensations, they all go hand in hand and they affect each other. And by doing this practice, one thing is that in order to do this practice we just did, I cannot think about all the other stuff that usually, has me incessantly, because I have to focus on the breath, moving the breath up, holding it, squeezing. I keep the mind busy and focused. And along the breath that is so clearing, that brings more oxygen to the body. So, yeah, I think it's self-evident that it affects so many dimensions in us.
What are some things that women may experience after doing it once, they'll experience something, but after incorporating this into a lifestyle, creating a habit of doing this, what are some things that they can look forward to potentially having a different experience with, either physical, mental, or emotional?
Yeah. So for me, I just use myself as an example because,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't used to do these practices and now they are just part of my life. One is just to come back to balance. Am I out of balance emotionally or in my thoughts, mentally, just feel miserable, or then just doing these practices or this kind of practice regularly shifts, like it's like a recalibration both in the moment, but it also allows then to live in a different state of being and feeling, so that it becomes sustainable. So my body is used to that, and if I'm not in balance, I can quickly come back to balance by deepening my breath into the belly, by opening the channel, just by bringing my awareness to moving the breath up and down, by connecting. I love to connect with my Yoni Center because I just love to be connected to her. I mean, not that I now have to go masturbate or do a self-love practice. It's more like hello, and feeling her, and being connected to my life force energy, and that becomes more habit than necessarily having to sit down and do a practice. I mean, I do both, but really what we want is that it's ever present in our everyday life. And so that we have a state of being that is attuned to the connection to the yoni, to myself, my self love, being in gratitude to myself, to the people around me, and also watching my thoughts, you know.
I
Are they,
think that's,
yeah,
oh, I
please.
was going to say, I think that's so important because I believe, based on the conversations that I've had with clients and, other women reaching out, that women today forget how powerful they are just from that feminine energy, just from that center that you've been talking about. We've completely forgot how to tap into that. And so what a lot of women think that they need to do is to use more of that masculine energy in order to get things done, or to be seen, or to be accepted or heard, or whatever it may be. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Elsbeth. That is not at all where or how we should be um, tapping into our power. That's not the way to go about it. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm so with you. The thing is, for the modern woman, what is most essential is to come back into balance of her feminine and masculine, or yin and yang. Because, yeah, you know, 50, 60 years ago, a woman needed her husband's signature to get a credit card. Imagine. Now we can participate in the marketplace. I mean, you know, yesterday we got our first vice president as a woman. You know, like, I mean, what's possible now compared with 50 or 100 years ago when we couldn't vote. However, to participate in the marketplace calls for having developed our masculine capacities,
Mm-hmm.
you know, competitiveness, you know, drivenness, moving forward, making something happen is all masculine or yang in terms of energy. And that's great. We don't want to throw this out with the bathwater. However, what we may have forgotten is the feminine side that is flowing, that is soft, that may be vulnerable at times, that is the listening, the open, the following. It is not an either or, because the leading without the following doesn't exist. And the following without the leading doesn't exist. And in relationship, we want to have both the capacity of the following and the leading. In our business, we want to have these dimensions so that at some moment I lead and the other follows, and then I follow and the other leads. And then we are in this infinity loop where we both have both capacities, no matter if they are two women working together or two men or a man and a woman. And in intimate relationship, if I cannot tap into my feminine and let go and surrender, which is not giving myself up, it is surrendering to the beauty that I am, to that wonderful, you know, energy that can bring me to such bliss. And yes, to surrender when I'm with another has to do with trusting.
Mm.
And trusting is deeply feminine. No matter where it shows up, in a man or a woman or transgender person or a bisexual person or, you know, a gay person. We are talking about energy. We don't talk about particular gender idiosyncrasies.
Mm-hmm.
So then tapping into our feminine flow opens up the experience of joy and bliss. And that is what we want to come back into, you know, so that we can really dance within, because both my masculine and feminine, no, it's like that symbol in the Chinese tradition of yin and yang, where we only can see the white because of the black and vice versa. So they are equally important. And within, we want to cultivate that further so that I have access to my flowing self and to my directional and decisive self. And can, most preferably, that they can not only coexist, but I can move with them simultaneously. So
Mm.
I can lead while I can have an open, compassionate heart, you know, and I can follow while I'm very clear in intention.
That's beautifully put. I know myself can utilize more of my masculine energy to get stuff done than tapping into the feminine and being more open-hearted and softer.
Mhm.
And so this is a great practice for me. And I know I'm not the only one out there who has maybe gotten stuck in using more of the masculine energy that we have.
Yeah.
Speaking of like feminine and masculine energy, how is it that we differ when it comes to intimacy than our male counterparts?
Yes.
How does that differ? Because I have a feeling how we relate or how we look at it greatly affects the communication with our partner, should it be of the opposite sex, greatly. Am I correct in thinking that way, or am I totally out in left field?
Totally, you pinpoint it. What I'm going to say now applies to any relationship. Again, no matter if it's heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, or transgender, because again, we speak about energy. So, in any relationship where we want to connect intimately sexually, there is this dynamic of yin and yang. If there is not that dynamic, there's no polarity, there is no magnetism, there's no attraction. You know, if we are both in our masculine, gets boring very quickly.
Well, nobody wins at that point.
Right. Yeah, so this is why we want to be open, and that doesn't mean that the one who is more in his male energy, it could be a he or it could be a she, you know, couldn't drop into their open, flowing feminine side, because we all have it in us. This is why it's so essential that we explore into this further within ourselves. Otherwise, it won't be available, you know, with a partner. So, but I will, in that, what I'm going to say, I will use like he and she, and then the listener, you can apply this to your particular relationship from that feminine or yin and yang, you know, dimension or dimensions. So most women, when they want to connect with their partner, they start feeling it in their heart center. There are women who are more in their sexual center oriented there. It doesn't apply to them. They may, you know, really resonate more with what I'm going to say about men in a moment. So most women, when we want to connect, we feel it here. Most men, or the one who's in his masculine, when they want to connect, they start feeling it in their sexual center. Now, this is just how it is. This is not good or bad or right or wrong. That is just how it is. So you can imagine he's feeling it from his sexual center. I'm feeling the connection from my heart center. So we are like two ships passing in the night. So in the tantric practice, the man learns how to channel his sexual energy from his sexual center up into his heart center. When he connects his manhood with his heart, he becomes more integrated, more connected, and he can listen from his heart that is fueled by his beautiful testosterone energy. When he connects from his heart to her heart opens, and when her heart opens, her yoni opens. And then you can see we have a circuit. Mm-hmm. And then we connect in that circuit. And then we flow in that circuit. And each of us, of course, brings a different way of being, you know, the flowing and the directional, because the male sexual energy, even the lingam, what is the penis in Sanskrit, you know, is like protruding outward, directional. The semen is designed to shoot into the yoni, you know, so that the semen can meet the egg. The egg is just there receiving. So we want to play with these energies instead of thinking we should be the same, or if he can, you know, feel his energy right away. Male energy rises quickly, gets easily excited, and then drops quickly. Female sexual energy rises slowly, hangs out, don't know if it's coming or going. It's capricious. However, when it's reawakened, it can come up to a plateau and stay on the plateau for a long time. Multiple orgasms, orgasmic waves. However, it calls for reawakening. So that allows then, remember I said earlier, the man wants to move up his energy, and in the tantric practice he learns how to move that up. There are very clear practices for a man he can cultivate. He can move up his testosterone energy, and that opens when he is connected. He can stay present to himself and his beloved, and that gives space to the awakening for the woman. And then we can dance the dance together. We can be on the wave together. And the wave can be experienced on a 9, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the ejaculatory or climactic moment. Could be on a 5, it could be on a 3. We don't go for the destination, we go for the dance. Or we are being the dance. It's a beingness versus a striving, a doingness. And that is where bliss arises. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think I'm sure you did. I'm going to have to listen to this again because I was just so enthralled with everything that you were saying, with moving energy up, moving energy down, connecting into a beautiful circuit, that I think I was busy focusing and picturing that versus listening to all the beautiful words that you were saying. So how can women learn more about tapping into their own feminine? How can they find out more about you? Where's the best place for them to, find that information?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So I teach a workshop for women which is called Awaken to Your Feminine Essence, where I teach, just like we talked about the different centers, the sexual, the emotional, the love center, and our mental consciousness center, where I guide women in tapping into each of the centers, becoming more familiarized with them, coming into wholeness, into connection. And then also how to draw and activate and experience that flow of fountain that leads us to deeper bliss within ourselves, and then sharing that bliss, if we choose to, with another. And that is a 3-day workshop. Right now I'm teaching it, online through Zoom. And it's just as powerful as when women come to the Institute for a 3-day retreat in person. And it's women often say, oh, that really shifted the way how I'm holding myself now as a woman, how connected I am to my Yoni energy, and use that as really a support, as a life-giving way in my everyday life. And for some women, it's also a deep healing from sexual wounds, from disconnection with, men, or just the emotional scarring. And given that healing can only happen here, not through another can stand by and hold space, but the healing happens within. Really much for the purpose of each woman to live a more purposeful, a more satisfying, fulfilled, and alive life.
And I don't know anybody that doesn't want all of those things. So where's a website that they can learn more about you and what you do? And I'll make sure to put this in the show notes, ladies, so that, if you're driving, don't be jotting things down. It'll be in the show notes for you to connect to later.
Great. So it's TantraNova.com. TantraNova, like supernova, TantraNova.com. And there are a number of different workshops and retreats, both group work as well as also we work one-on-one with individuals and couples is all laid out there, including the Awaken to Your Feminine Essence workshop. And of course, whoever would like to have with me a conversation, just explore, what it could mean to you personally, to your life, how it would apply. I would be happy to jump on a call with you.
Wonderful. And before we end things, I like to ask just a few fun questions so that, my listeners can get maybe a little more personal understanding of who Elsbeth is. So don't think too hard about these questions. It's not meant to be life-shattering. But what is your favorite beverage?
Prosecco.
Hmm. What is your favorite food?
I actually like wild blueberry smoothie. It's
Mm.
not just a food. Can I say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What's your favorite song?
One favorite song now has become very favorite is by the Fifth Dimension, The Age of Aquarius.
Oh, yes. That's a
You
good
know,
one. That's an
every
oldie but a goodie.
yes, and that is what we are tapping into now, the Age of Aquarius, that is actually the age of the feminine.
It is. So, ladies, I hope you're ready to wake up your feminine. And then, last question. What is on your night side table?
Oh, actually, I don't keep anything on my nightside table.
Good for
It's
you.
totally empty. Because when I go to bed, it's really time to become still, and drift into the subconscious and then a deep rest. Uh, and most of what I'm reading now is on my phone anyway.
I know. I gotta move my stuff off of my nightside table just because it doesn't need to be there. Other than my mouth tape and my Breathe
Yeah.
essential oil. Perfect. And then actually that's a lie. That is not the last question. The last question is, what legacy do you want to impart on this world?
Oh, wow. I'm touched that you are asking this question because that is very much at the forefront of my heart and mind. I'm 71 years old, so I'm really looking at what further contribution can I make to humankind in the time I'm here still before I may leave. And not that I'm thinking about leaving, but and also something happened over the last couple of years. I had a hysterectomy a couple of years ago that really shifted so much for me and opened up for me. And then also one shift of not being my life about so much about me. However, who am I to others? So it's shifted how I run the business, what priorities I have in my life. And so I really want to make a further dent into this coming to inner fulfillment and peace and joy, both within and then also in couplehood. I'm deeply committed to that because I believe relationships is the place where we start shifting the world from, you know, using war and fighting for resolution, which is really it cannot be resolved through that, to shifting the way we are in relationship, to listening, to speaking our voice with grace and dignity, and to co-create in partnership where it's not about that one is up and the other one is down. No, co-creation is where we both back, to the leading and following, to the listening and speaking. And so we can really resolve the differences in this partnership. And that will, permeate everything, the relationships at work, the relationships between organizations and between countries. That's for
Beautiful.
me the nucleus, the relationship, and it starts over here.
It does. The relationship starts with ourself, doesn't it?
Mm.
Beautifully put. Well, thank you so much, Elsbeth, for being with me. You really gave my listeners quite the gift with that guided pelvic floor or yoni exercise. And, you know, Elsbeth and I will figure out the best way for you all to get that guided exercise or meditation or whatever word fits best to you all. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time on the Women in Wellness. Thanks for being with me. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Women in Wellness as much as I did. If you did, please leave a review and a rating so that others can also benefit from the information being shared. Make sure to subscribe as new content is released on Women in Wellness Wednesdays. And if you want to connect with us, go online to womeninwellness.com. That's women, the letter N, wellness.com. I look forward to seeing you next time.